Welcome to part 1 of 7.3 Annihilation. Hey guys, it is the Gaming Ronin, and I'm coming at you with part 1 of my 7.3 Annihilation guide. Why is it part 1? Well, because we are going to have 2 parts. The first is going to be for the newbies that are coming into Annihilation wanting to play it. And part 2 is going to be for you more advanced guys. So if you're new, stick around. If you're advanced, you just want to see what changes I'm making to my rotation in 7.3, go ahead, either click either on the link that's popping up on your screen or the link in the description below. But if you're new, let's go ahead and get right into it. First thing we are going to go over is going to be our ability tree. This is going to be pretty distinct and purely just to teach you the basics of what Annihilation wants to do, because we're going to make your resource gain really, really easy, to the point that you don't really have to think about it. What we mainly want to do here for you guys is get your muscle memory set up, okay? That is what we're doing here in part 1. You're not going to do a great amount of damage, mainly because we are not taking any damage modifiers. We are going purely for resources and health and survivability. Like I said, this is just to build your muscle memory, because we're going to use the same rotation that I use in my normal gameplay in nightmare level content or master mode, as most of you know it. So we're going to be using that same rotation. We're just going to be doing it here, where we're not really going to do a lot of damage, because that's not the goal. The goal is just to get us set up and get the basics down pat and build a foundation so we can jump to that, because there's going to be heavier resource building once you swap off, to the point it's going to be a little jarring at times. But if we get our rotation down, because we're using the same rotation, it's going to be a relatively easy transition for you guys. Okay, so what is our first ability tree choice? That's going to be a Juyo Rend. We're taking this primarily for the 10 Fury that Force Rend will generate when we select Juyo Rend. We don't really care about maxing out our Juyo stacks, mainly because that happens so quickly. It really doesn't matter. Next, we want to take Predation for pretty much everything. There's a few, and I mean very few, situations where Predation is not helpful. You're going to want to take Overwhelming Slashes instead, if you are ever find the point where you need to take Predation off. If you ever have someone yelling at you for using Predation, just tell them Predation, please, and move on with your day. Okay. Next, take Blood Wave. This gives you an AoE, so if you spread your dots out and you use Rupture, anything that's within a few meters of your primary target that has a dot on it or a bleed will take an extra bit of damage at max gear. If they have 1 dot, they will take 5,000. If they have 2 dots, they will take 10,000 points of damage. So definitely make sure, if you're in an AoE situation, use your smash, spread the dots, and start spamming Rupture. It will be significantly better than taking Sweeping Slash, which, for those of you that have looked at your ability tree, and have taken Rupturing Rage, the reason I don't is we aren't going to use Rupture when Berserk is active outside of the opener. Mainly because of our primary tactical makes it so we don't need to use Rupture until we go to attack a target for the first time, or our bleed has fallen off our target because we were careless or had to go deal with mechanic and came back to the same target. There's very little chance that you're going to be activating Rupture during Berserk. So that refund that you're getting while Berserk is active just isn't gonna happen. It's pretty rare. And then the trauma healing primarily is random mobs out in the wild or PvP. That's really where your trauma is going to come in handy, which, if you're out in the wild, just take Blood Wave, you can kill everything faster. And if you're in PvP, the trauma is semi worthwhile. but do note that a lot of other classes can take their trauma ability tree choice quite easily, and will be applying their trauma as well. So, and I don't believe it stacks. I don't, or at least I don't know if it stacks or not. It's a choice. You can stick with Blood Wave in PvP, or you can swap off Disruption Rage for that trauma if you really want to use it. But I would highly recommend swapping to Carnage if you're gonna play Marauder in PvP. Carnage is just gonna do so much more than Annihilation will. Although you will have a pretty nice damage profile. Spreading dots is good. Next, we're going to take Bleeding Center. This is going to build us 4 Rage when we activate Berserk, as well as whenever our bleed damage critically hits, we will build 2 Rage once every 2 seconds. So very, very handy. We are going to be sticking with this no matter what. So if you do decide to move on and take a look at the more advanced way of playing Annihilation by taking Draining Center over Jugia Rend, we're still going to be using Bleeding Center. Next, I highly recommend Steel Self, primarily for the 30% AoE damage reduction that you will get whenever you activate Bloodthirst, Cloak of Pain, or Predation. And it just adds another layer of protection that Predation gives you whenever you activate it. So it's basically a once every 30 seconds 30% damage reduction, really once every 20 seconds, because it lasts for 10 seconds. So you can just cut out that 10 seconds from Predation's cooldown. As well as you do get just a generic at all times increase to your internal and elemental damage reduction by 3%. That's for any dots that are applied to you. The damage they do will be reduced by 3%. I really wouldn't take Interloper in most situations, even in PvP. The getting to a target just isn't worth it, and it doesn't increase or decrease how far away you have to be before you can use Force Charge. It's just an extra leap, and it only builds 2 Fury. That's all it really does. Which that 2 Fury isn't really worth it, because again, you have to leap, which means you have to run away from a target, then leap in. That Fury just isn't worth trying to obtain. However, there are 2 fights that I do recommend this for. The first being Dash Road in Scum and Villainy. It's the very first boss. Interloper is insanely good for it because Dash Road does knock you back pretty frequently, and this will essentially just keep you right on him at all times. So I highly like using Interloper for that fight. And then also, for those of you that are doing R4, I also really like this for Lady Dom. You don't fully need Steel Self in that fight really at all. And just there are just some key moments, key points where just having that second leap up is really massive. So I like taking Interloper for that fight, and that's the only time I take Interloper. Cloak of Retribution. If you're doing PvE, highly recommend this. Even PvP, this is pretty decent. However, having Blood Ward for PvP, I would more recommend, just because Saber Ward is going to give you immunity to stun for 6 seconds. So if you need to go cap a point, or you're doing the Odessan PvP map, this is actually pretty good, just so that you can get the little power-ups and go turn off a node, activate a node, get the speed up, or get the 2 times in, because you won't be stunned. So it's actually really good for that. But it's a choice whether you want to use Blood Ward or Cloak of Retribution. And then this line here, 68, you're going to constantly swap between these depending on what you're doing. There are plenty of fights where Mad Dash is what you need to take. There are plenty of fights where Undying Rage is what you need to take. There are several fights. There are 2 fights really in all of the operations that you actually need Force Choke for, and that is Nightmare Red and Nahut hard mode in Gods. Red is that is the very first boss of Duxon. Those are the only fights you actually need Force Choke for. Otherwise, you don't need this. if you really want to use it in PvP just so you have a stun, sure, but do note you are giving up 2 pretty good defensives to stun a player for 4 seconds. This lasts for 6 seconds and is kind of way better. And then lastly, take Thirst for Rage. Bloodthirst will generate you 12 rage when activated, and then additionally, passively at all times. So you don't need to activate Bloodthirst for this, but you will heal yourself by 1% of your maximum health anytime you use an ability that consumes your rage. So that happens at all times. You do not need to activate Bloodthirst. I originally thought Bloodthirst was needed for this to happen, and I thought it was pretty bad. It's actually pretty good. They just need to really, really clarify. Bloodthirst has nothing to do with anything after the comma. So, pretty solid. If you don't really care for the 12 rage when Bloodthirst is activated, or you don't care for the healing, you can go for Brazen for the increased damage reduction by 2%, as well as building you 2 Fury whenever you're attacked, or basically whenever you take damage, is really what this says. This is pretty useful, but because of Juyo-Ren, you don't really need the 2 Fury at all. So it's really a choice between the damage reduction and the healing, which are pretty minimal to the point that they almost kind of equal each other. It's really just dependent on what you want. So for here with Juyo-Ren, I would recommend Thirst for Rage. And that is going to be our ability tree for now. Let's take a quick look at our implants and relics, as well as tacticals that you are going to want to consider, and then we'll get into the rotation. So, first thing that we need to get is our Dispatcher implant. This is kind of numero uno on our to-do list once you hit level 80, alongside our first main tactical, Spiteful Saber. These are the first 2 things you're going to want to get. Spiteful Saber lets your Rupture deal 10% more damage, as well as Vicious Slash, Vicious Throw, and Dual Saber Throw will refresh the Rupture Bleed. So once you apply your Rupture Bleed, you really don't need to use it again. You just need to use Vicious Slash, Vicious Throw, and Dual Saber Throw to keep that bleed ongoing. So they become more powerful Ruptures than what Rupture is. You only need to use Rupture again once you move on to a new target, or you accidentally let your bleed fall off, or you were forced to go deal with something else, and then you had to come back and clean up on the target you were originally attacking, and you'll probably need to refresh your Rupture bleed. So you'll hit Rupture, and then you won't touch Rupture again until it dies, or you need to hit refresh or reapply it. So that is why Spiteful Saber and Dispatcher are the primary things you need to get. Both of these can be found in the supply sections. Our 2 implants here, you're going to go talk to a Twi'lek in the far right-hand cubby, where all of the conquest vendor is, the flashpoint and operation vendor is. You will need to talk to that Twi'lek. He'll be standing in the middle. He'll give you a mission to go do various things in the game. Once you complete that mission, go back and talk to him again, and he'll give you access to a droid named Snark, or SN for RK. The Snark is the legendary implant vendor. Then you'll go ahead and get Dispatcher package once you have the necessary currencies to buy the implant. You'll probably need to do things like operations to be able to buy these, because you need tech fragments, and you can get tech fragments pretty quickly by doing some story mode operations. So make sure you buy those, as well as Berserker's Call. You need this primarily for rage generation. It is part of our rage generation. Not only that, it does give us a nice little buff that allows our Vicious Slash and Vicious Throw to critically hit whenever we use Dual Saber Throw. Berserker's Call is just a generic 5% damage increase whenever you activate Berserk for 10 seconds, which our entire rotation is only 10 seconds long, so it will constantly be up. As for tacticals, if you go just to the left of where the implant vendor is, you will find a tactical vendor. He will have that title. You will talk to him, and that's where you'll be able to buy your 3 tacticals that you're going to want to have as an Annihilation Marauder. Make sure you have the currencies to buy them. But of course, we've already talked about Spiteful Saber. The second one you are going to want to get is going to be Hidden Power. This is going to allow you to build rage outside of combat by activating Force Camouflage whenever Hidden Power is applied to yourself. And then once you activate Force Camo, you can immediately just swap back to your Spiteful Saber. And as you can see, I actually have those hotkeyed on my bars. You can put them on your bars and you can instantaneously swap between them. Very handy. Highly recommend that you do that. And then the last main tactical that you're going to need as an Annihilation Marauder will be Memorial Mask. Now, this one you can skip out if you really want to, as you don't fully need it. Mainly because it is purely for AoE situations. But basically, whenever you use Annihilate to deal damage and your target has the Force Rend bleed on it, it will trigger a burst of damage that will hit up to 8 targets. So basically you're hitting 8 targets with your Annihilate. And it's pretty freaking satisfying. But you don't fully need this. You can live your entire life and never use Memorial Mask, so long as you at least have Spiteful Saber. Then the last thing that we're going to talk about are relics. For 7.3, we can actually just stick with Serendipitous and focus Ret. For quite a while, I've been using Devastating Vengeance just because we've needed to crit a little bit more often, just to fight our RNG, but thanks to the change to Bloodlust, now that it's just a direct attack hitting instead of a direct attack critically hitting, the need for Devastating Vengeance just isn't there, as well as it's not as helpful anymore. So we just need Serendipitous Assault and Focused Ret as your relics. All right, and for all you new guys, we're going to keep things pretty simple. When and if you move on to the little more complicated way in using Draining Center, we will provide a more complicated opener. But even when you do move on, you can stick to this opener. It is not the worst thing in the world to use. So the only thing you need to do pre-battle is just channel your hatred, get to your Fury stack. If you have to move from one fight to another, you probably are either going to need to continue on in the repeated core, and that will take a little bit of practice to do so to keep your repeated core up and moving. Or if you're not too versed in it, you will have to take the time to use Fury building abilities like Annihilate, Rupture, Vicious Slash, Vicious Throw, and Force Scream, Sweeping Slash, and Smash to get your Fury stack. But once you get there, things will be a little bit easier for you. But here in pre-battle, where we're able to initiate our first bout of combat, just get to your 30 stack, and we are going to use Force Charge over Deadly Saber, sorry, I'm thinking Sentinel terms, Battering Assault, and then you're going to have a choice of either Rupture or Annihilate. Either one is honestly perfectly fine to use. Me, personally, I like getting my dots applied as quickly as possible, so I tend to use Rupture first, but you can absolutely 100% use Annihilate first if you really want to. After either one of those abilities, you'll move on to Berserk and then Force Rend, and that will be your opening rotation. Then you'll go into the repeated core from Force Rend, okay? Let's go ahead and take a look at what that will look like. So I'm going to leap in, use Deadly Saber, Battering Assault, I'll use Annihilate, my Berserk, and then my Force Rend. Now, because I haven't used Rupture yet, the next thing I would use to start my opening core will be Rupture, okay, or my opening rotation, just to start off the repeated core, and we'll explain the repeated core a little bit in just a moment. But if you want to have all 3 of your dots just applied in the opening rotation, instead of using Annihilate, you'll want to use Rupture. There's a couple of reasons to use Annihilate. First, primarily is that you do get a buff to your bleed damage whenever you use Annihilate. There it is right there, Devious Wounds. It lasts about 6 seconds, and it's just a solid increase to it, so that's why you would want to use it. But getting all your dots on first and foremost is just as valid. All right, now moving on to our repeated core, we're going to have a couple graphics here for you guys. The first being this one. Now, this was our pre 7.3 repeated core. 5 fillers, Deadly Saber, filler, Berserk filler, Force Rend. That is going to change now. What we're going to be doing instead from this point onward is going to be filler, Dual Saber Throw, or Ravage. 3 fillers, Deadly Saber, filler, Berserk, Force Rend. Now, what the heck is a filler, I hear you asking me? Filler is kind of what the name implies. We are choosing abilities to fill in the time, because we are waiting for certain cooldowns to become available again. So we are waiting for Dual Saber Throw or Ravage, over Deadly Saber, again, trying to say Sentinel terms, Berserk or Force Rend. We're waiting for those cooldowns to come because we want them to happen at certain times. Okay? So, what happened in 7.3, the change that happened, is Bloodlust. Bloodlust used to say your direct damage attacks that critically hit a bleeding target build 1 rage. Then everything else afterward is the same. Now it just simply says your direct damage attacks that hit a bleeding target build 1 rage. And then everything else is the same. So since we just have to do direct damage attacks now to build 1 rage once every 3 seconds, we can kind of put certain abilities in certain slots. The reason I'm telling you guys here, instead of in the more advanced side of things in part 2, is to build your muscle memory. Because here, things are really, really easy. All you need to worry about with this rotation here is build Fury. And that's going to happen real fast. Like insanely fast. You are going to have so much time in the world. Berserk will be available for quite a while. And you kind of have to start training yourself to not just instantly pop. Because if you pop it too soon, when you go to use Force Rend, and you're using Draining Center, and your Berserk went off too soon, well, you're not going to get that 2 times damage. Now, we are using Juyo Rend here, and we don't need to combine Berserk and Force Rend. However, I would hope you would want to do the most amount of damage as possible, because it is nice to see those big, shiny numbers as much as possible. It really is nice to see it. So this is going to allow you guys to learn the rotation to use Draining Center. This is the exact thing I'm doing using Draining Center. Okay? So that is why you're seeing all of this stuff, why I'm telling you all this stuff, why I'm telling you to use Ravage and Blade and Dual Saber Throw in the second filler slot, as it's now the Ravage or Dual Saber Throw slot. It's no longer a filler slot. So we are cutting down how much filler we're doing by 1, and we now have a more solid actual rotation. And by doing it this way, you're building that muscle memory, and when you go to swap over to Draining Center, the less amount of fury that you're going to experience isn't going to be as jarring, because the way that the rotation is built is to build you your fury perfectly. Okay, it's still not perfect. There are still some issues because we still have just a little too much RNG in our resource building, but it's not as severe as it was pre 7.3. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at what filler is, which it's this. The filler priority system. Basically, we have a list of abilities that we want to do over the other if those abilities are available. If they're not available, we move to the next ability. If that ability isn't available, we move to the next ability. Now, the first thing that you are going to notice, especially for you veteran guys, I'm not including Dual Saber Throw or Ravage in the filler priority list, and that is mainly because we are giving a specific slot to both of those abilities. We're using one or the other in the second filler slot. Normally that's just normally that slot would be given to any one of these abilities plus Dual Saber Throw and Ravage, but because we are making it exclusively for those two abilities, we don't want to include them as filler abilities to use in any of the slots where it says filler. So those are being excluded. If you want to be, kind of just hit random buttons, just hit abilities, but still follow this order, you can use this rotation, of course, where it's all filler, and you can use Ravage and Dual Saber Throw as you please. The only thing that you want to do is make sure before you reach the Berserk slot that you have built up your 30 Fury, which with Juyo Rend, it doesn't take many Fury building abilities to do that. So you don't need to worry as much if you are going to kind of ignore this newer set rotation. So I just wanted to point that out. This is not your typical filler priority list. You only want to apply it if you are going to use Dual Saber Throw and Ravage in the set slot. Okay, so hopping into our first filler priority button, if this ability is available, you should 100% be using it, is Annihilate. Annihilate gives us quite a few buffs. Not only that, the more we use it, the quicker its cooldown will expire and you can use it again. You want to be using Annihilate as soon as it's available. You do want to pay attention a little bit to your rage just because it does have 4 rage to cast it, but overall you're getting a lot of rage built back to you, so that cost is actually being reduced a lot, pretty frequently, I should say. After Annihilate, the next highest priority is going to be your Vicious Throw. Now, Vicious Throw you can't use until your target is at 29% health or less. So while it does have a higher priority than Vicious Slash, you will be using Vicious Slash a heck of a lot more. It's just once Vicious Throw is available, you need to use that over Vicious Slash instead. Now, sometimes if you have a proc Dual Saber Throw, you may want to hold out on using your Vicious Throw, just because we do have the Dispatcher Implant, which allows Dual Saber Throw to give you a buff to make your next Vicious Throw or Vicious Slash to critically hit. So holding off on using Vicious Throw to get that buff and let it consume the buff will allow you to do a lot more damage. Plus, once you kind of get into that rhythm, Vicious Throw will almost always be available after your proc Dual Saber Throw is used. So you sometimes may want to set that up for yourself. But overall, you want to be using Vicious Throw over Vicious Slash. Now, Vicious Slash is kind of our mascot here for the filler priority list. You're going to use this 8 times out of 10. Just because it's an instant cast. It only costs 3 rage to use, and it's just overall good. Not only that, it also is one of the 3 abilities that will refresh our Rupture Bleed, the other 2 being Vicious Throw and Dual Saber Throw. So it is also acting as a much more powerful Rupture as well. So this kind of view Vicious Slash as your mascot for your priority list and what you're going to use the most. Now, the next two abilities you can kind of interchange between one another. So they can be, Smash can be in slot 5 and Rupture can be in slot 4. They're kind of dead even. The main reason for this is that if you get really low on Rage and you haven't quite reached your 30 stack, you only have 2. These 2 abilities are usable at 2 Rage, and they will build you the last little bit of Fury that you need to build, as long as you're at least 26 Fury or 28 Fury. Sometimes 27, sometimes 29. That does happen. You want to use these as kind of like your emergency. I have nothing else I can do, and I need to get to my 30 stack. Hit Smash or Rupture. Now, Smash is our dot spreader. This is going to spread both the Rupture bleed and the Force Rend bleed to multiple other targets that you're not currently main targeting. So I do put Smash over Rupture just for that reason. Not only that, with the Blood Wave utility, after you spread your dots, you can just spam Rupture to hit everything around you, because it doesn't care whether a target is in front of you, much like Sweeping Slash does, which is why Sweeping Slash is actually below Rupture. Rupture is now a much better AoE than Sweeping Slashes just because of the dot spreading and being able to hit multiple targets that are surrounding you, unlike what Sweeping Slash is able to do. Now, if you're not taking Blood Wave, you're taking Rupturing Wave instead, Sweeping Slash is going to be one of your other AoEs, but I very rarely use it, again, just because Blood Wave is so much better. Then we come to Battering Assault and Assault. Because of Bloodlust, we don't fully need Battering Assault. There are going to be moments where you're going to be pretty low, and you need to just pop it off. But you can successfully go through the rotation without hitting Battering Assault, because you are going to be building a much more consistent pool of Rage. It is one at a time and then once every 3 seconds, but it's enough that you won't necessarily need to use Battering Assault all the time. There will definitely be moments where you're going to need to pop it off and where it's your only option, which is why it's on the bars. So you do use it if you have to, but you don't fully need to. You can do other things like Ravage and Dual Saber Throw, because they do have that chance to either maintain your Rage or build you your Rage back up, thanks to Bloodlust. So if you have to do these emergency, oh no, I need Rage, you can use Ravage and Dual Saber Throw outside of their set slot, but do your best to not do that. Mainly, again, just to help you build your muscle memory. In the same vein as Battering Assault, Assault is there for your emergency. If Battering Assault is on cooldown and you can't do anything else, you're completely out of Rage, Assault is gonna get you out of that jam. Just spam it. It's okay to do so, because it's gonna allow you to kind of go back at it. Okay, so that is highly, highly important to have as an emergency oh shit button on your bars. That's why it's remained on my bars. I would much prefer to just never need it, but it's better to have it and not use it than to not have it and need it. And then lastly is going to be Force Scream. Force Scream is just not needed. It just doesn't do anything for us outside. It's a powerful attack. It does 20k damage-ish, kind of depending on how it crits. The only real use case is if a target is not, you can't leap to a target, but it's also not in range of your melee attacks. It's a ranged attack. It will allow you to do something, and it does build this Fury as well. So if you're still trying to build Fury and you just can't get to your target, it's just remaining out of range from you being able to leap to it, Force Scream is fine to hit. But that's about the only real use case that Force Scream has for us. So it is absolute dead last on the priority list. Just you could even cut it off from the priority list, just because 99.9999% of the time you're not going to use it. It does nothing for us bleed wise, and it doesn't propagate extra damage to our bleeds. It doesn't spread our bleeds. It's there. It's just a Marauder thing. It's really a warrior thing, more than anything. So, Force Scream is not that useful. All right, so now that we've gone over that, let's go ahead and take a look at what this all looks like in action. Let's actually apply the filler priority list. Let's apply getting all of our muscle memory down. Don't just hit the shiny because it's shiny. There's a reason it's shiny, and we have a purpose and a reason for when we want to hit the shiny. Now, I will give you this. You can, as of right now, with Juyo Rend, use your Ravage and Dual Saber Throw whenever you want. Okay? Full stop right now. If you have no plans on using Draining Center, you're free to use it whenever you want. But if you want to build good habits, use them on slot number 2, right there. Okay? Ding, ding, ding. That is your winner, winner, chicken dinner. All right. So that's my disclaimer out of the way. You can use it whenever, but we are doing this so we build good habits. The reason we're doing Berserk followed up by Force Rend is because we're building good habits. Not only that, in that moment, all 3 of our dots will be applied and they will be under Berserk, and you will have a minimum of 2 stacks of Deadly Saber applied. You will be doing a lot of damage even without Draining Center. Okay? Or at least we're going to be maximizing the amount of damage we can without Draining Center, because Draining Center is markedly more powerful. So we're going to start off with the opener, and we're going to flow into our repeated core. I will stick with my typical Rupture before Force Rend in the opener, using Annihilate afterward. Okay? That is how we will start things off. All right. Now, one last key thing. You can use a Berserk, Frenzy, and Adrenal if they are available pre-battle to just upgrade your opening dots to do 100% critical damage, as well as provide a power boost to do some extra damage as well. All right, and we are good to hop in here. Now, we are going to do Force Charge, Deadly Saber, Battering Assault, Rupture, Berserk, Force Rend, starting off with Annihilate in the repeated core, Vicious Slash, Vicious Slash, Vicious Slash, Deadly Saber, Vicious Slash, Vicious Slash, Berserk, Force Rend, Vicious Slash. Now we're going to do our Dual Saber Throw. We could have done it a little bit earlier. We're going to follow that up with all of that. There we go. And we're just going to kind of flow. Now, you do have the choice between Dual Saber Throw and Ravage there. Choose whichever one you feel is better. I do highly recommend, if Dual Saber Throw becomes available, use that over the Ravage, okay? Now, here we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So basically what I was able to do there, I did my Vicious Slash, and then a Ravage, Vicious Slash, Annihilate, a Vicious Slash, Deadly Saber, followed up by 2 more Vicious Slashes, then Berserk and Force Rend, if I remember that correctly, more or less. But we did 10 abilities. And then we just repeat that. And then, you know, after we do the Force Rend, we do either an Annihilate if it's available. We do Vicious Slash if it's available. Then we make a distinction. Did Dual Saber Throw proc? If it did, we're going to hit that. If not, we're going to use Ravage. And then we do 3 fillers. You know, we're going to choose to do Vicious Slash or Annihilate if it's available. If you get in the situation where you're low on Rage, probably not that low, but let's say you just run out of rage. You do want to use your battering assault in there, because as you saw, we were getting to our 30 stack pretty quickly there, more or less well before Force Rend became available. Okay, and then it's just a matter of disciplining yourself to not just pop it off. So let's go ahead, rebuild our stacks here real quick, and then we're going to jump right back in. So Force Charge, Deadly Saber, Battering Assault, Rupture, Berserk, Force Rend. We have Annihilate, so we're going to use that. Dual Saber Throw, 1, 2, 3. Battering Assault, 1, 2. Berserk, Force Rend. Then Vicious Slash, Ravage, because it's available inside. Then Annihilate for 1, 2, 3. Deadly Saber, boom, and boom. And then since Ravage is available and our Dual Saber Throw is, we're going to use that. Just like we said in the filler section, Annihilate was available, so we prioritized using that over Vicious Slash. Annihilate, Ravage, 1, 2, 3. Boom, and we're all set. Now, could you have used a dual saber as soon as it became available? Yes, you can. And you know, let's take a look at what that would look like, right? So let's do a dual saber throw. Throw that. Hit Deadly Saber. Hit our Annihilate. Hit Berserk. Hit Vicious Slash. It's more than fine to do that because we're still going to get access to our Berserk because we have taken the time to get our 30 stack all built up. Okay, so I'm gonna, because I can, I'm just gonna use the dual saber throw. But do note, because I had done a Ravage previously, me choosing to do that, that's gonna mess with us a little bit, but that's okay. You can always do Battering Assault in place of the Ravage if both Ravage and Dual Saber Throw are not available. That's one of the reasons why we have it. You could also do Assault if you really wanted to, but Battering Assault is better just because you're going to get a nice big stack of Rage rather than just 2 Rage. So boom, we're back at full just like that. So let's look at it one more time. This time in the opener, I am going to do it the other way, where I'm going to choose to use Annihilate over Rupture instead. Like I showed you when we first really started talking about our opener. And just to save us time, I'm going to pop that right there. So we're going to go ahead, leap in. We're going to do Deadly Saber, Battering Assault, Annihilate, Berserk, Force Rend, Rupture. Then follow that up with the Dual Saber Throw. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then 1 Dual Saber Throw became available, so I'm going to use that over the Rupture. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Boom. Boom. A little off, but that's just talking to you guys. Boom. And you just want to pay attention to your cooldowns, what's about to be available, what's not available, all of that. And it's going to take practice to do all of that, okay? So take your time, and you're going to notice that each line of rotation, it's not quite the same. Annihilate is available at a different time almost every single time, but it will kind of show up in the same spots, more or less. Sometimes it's going to be just before Force Rend, sometimes it's going to be just after Force Rend. But you'll notice our filler slots, because we're not really dipping below 29k, just because I haven't made the dummy killable, we don't have Vicious Throw to worry about right now. Once you do make it killable via these two tools here, just nothing where I want it. The training, the armor reduction module, and the advanced health modulator, which you can get off of your little repair astromech on your spaceship if you have unlocked it. It will let you kill it, and you'll be able to start utilizing Vicious Throw alongside that. And I just want to show you guys what one last thing before we wrap up here, and that's going to be activating Berserk and Frenzy before we leap in. Okay, so we are going to build our 30 stack real quick. Now that that's done, instead of just leaping in, I'm going to go ahead and activate Berserk, Frenzy, now leap in. Now I'm going to hit my Deadly Saber, my Battering Assault, Annihilate, Berserk again, Force Strand, and then go into the repeated core with Rupture, Dual Saber Throw, 3 fillers, then the Deadly Saber, the 2 extra fillers, Berserk, Force Strand, and then kind of repeating from that point on. And what that is going to do for us is when we leap in, when we hit the Deadly Saber and then come in with the Battering Assault, because we've already hit a Berserk, our first few dots are 100% critical all the way up until we get to either our Ravage or Dual Saber Throw in the first line of the repeated core. Okay? So that is something you can do as well if it's a viable option for you. You're able to either end a fight with a full 30 stack and you didn't use Frenzy, or you're gonna start a fight, you can build your stack there and pop off your Berserk and activate your Frenzy to get back your 30 stack. So when you get back to the point you're gonna activate Force Rend, Berserk is there for you. And then all of your dots are just getting that 100% crit all the way through in the opener there. Okay, so that is pretty much everything. If I were to continue, we'd be going forever. But that is it, and it just becomes a practice of being able to judge which ability you should use in the moment. Okay, and that's unfortunately something I can't really help you out with. You just have to start memorizing the filler priority list and running through that checklist of what you need to do, what not to do. And sometimes you're going to make the mistake. You're going to pop something, you know, that you didn't necessarily want to pop, or you're going to realize, oh, that wasn't what I should have done there. And it just takes time and practice to really catch it. But once you get the flow of things, it is going to feel a lot better. And of course, you will notice we use Vicious Slash most of the time. Just a lot of spam Vicious Slashes. And not only that, making Ravage and making Dual Saber Throw in a set spot in the rotation does lessen the difficulty of the filler priority list, because now it's not so much of like, oh, when should I incorporate these as well? So it does make things a little bit easier on that front. But that is going to be it for part 1 here, guys. I do hope that you do move on to part 2, where we're going to really talk about Draining Center, really kind of showcase all the different stuff you're going to have to do, because we aren't going to have that 10 extra Fury when we activate Force Rend. Boom, there we go. It's just not going to be there. So we're going to have to figure out what we do with less Fury. And in all honesty, it's just do more Fury building abilities. But it is the same rotation that I am providing for you guys here. So if you practice through with this, you get your muscle memory in, making that transition is not going to be as difficult as it once was. I want to give a massive, massive shout out to DanSWTOR, who helped me quite a bit in this process the last number of months, and getting things cleaned up and making things more succinct. Not only that, he is the one that was able to develop this more set rotation. So massive shout outs to him. His info will be linked down below if you want to check him out for both his Twitch and his YouTube channel. Then if you guys do want to catch me live, I do stream throughout the week, Tuesday through Friday, at all times in the day. So you should be able to catch me live at some time. Do check my streaming schedule out, although I think right now it's a little outdated. I need to update that. But you should be able to catch me live. Typically, I go live between about 6 p.m. PST, and then continue on from there for 2 to 4 hours, just depending on the day. And then make sure you hit the subscribe button and hit that like button just for the algorithm, all that good stuff, as well as being able to catch more guide videos. I am planning to expand the channel quite a bit, so if you do want to support me, hitting that subscribe button would help a ton. But in the meantime, guys, I've been the Gaming Ronin, and I will catch you in a galaxy far, far away.